Hello, I'm John Schull. I'm from RIT's Center for Media, Arts, Games, Interaction, and Creativity. I have a new job title as of January. I'm a research scientist in magic. Our story begins with these guys. On the right is a carpenter from South Africa who accidentally cut the fingers off of his right hand. And he teamed up with a puppeteer and prop maker for B movies named Ivan Owen. And together, they produced something which has changed my life and many other lives. A year and 2 months ago, I saw this video in which Mr. Van Az reported that he had done this and that he had used a 3D printer with Ivan to produce a 3D printable prosthetic hand. And he'd come to realize that this was a solution not just for people who had accidentally lost fingers, but for people who were born without fingers, of which there are an extraordinarily large number. 1 in 2,000 children are born with some kind of an upper limb abnormality. And he mentioned that he was seeking some money to make these for children, and that he was putting the design on the internet. And I noticed something really interesting. I don't know about you, but when I look at YouTube videos and the comments, they are usually pretty demoralizing. But in this case, there were several people who said, "This is really cool. I have a 3D printer. I would do this." So I had a bright idea, and I added my own comment to that video, which said, "Maker-botters, if you have a 3D printer or if you need a hand, put yourself on this map." And I spent 20 minutes and I made a Google Map mashup in which they could add pins to the map, and I described it as a global volunteer assistive technology network built on an infrastructure of electronic communications, 3D printing, and goodwill. And that's a really important recipe, and I think it's about to take over all sorts of things. Within 90 days, there were 70 people on the map. And I sort of expected that people would find each other through the map, and then the guy with the printer or the woman with the printer would download a 3D model, which she could modify to suit the needs of the particular user. They could then print the model on a 3D printer. You'll see those outside, and they'll be demoed tomorrow. They could then learn the fine handcraft of crafting hands and put something like this together. And it's actually worked out a lot like that. And this is the kind of thing you get. What I didn't really expect was that the community would grow and grow and grow, and that it wouldn't be just a maker meeting up with a recipient, but it would really be a global village beginning to work on this problem together. When I made this slide, we had 915 members, and that wasn't that long ago. We crossed the 1,500 mark this week, and we're already up to 1,558. This community has been growing by about 10% a week for about 8 months now. And if you extrapolate that, it may turn out that the big news is that there is a global army of tens or even hundreds of thousands of well-trained, highly motivated, tech-savvy people who are willing to donate a huge amount of time for a worthy cause. Now, I think we're in a cosmic sweet spot. You can't do much better than smiling children making fist pumps. But it turns out we're not just distributing these things. We have unleashed a Cambrian explosion of innovative designs. What you see here is the original, or a near original, robo-hand of the sort that was pictured in that video. And this is one of our current workhorses, the Cyborg Beast, by one of our members in Nebraska. And that particular model has been favorably compared by a user to a commercial prosthetic costing $42,000. This guy was on Fox News. He said, "I've got this wonderful hand. I press one button and my hand opens. I press another button and my hand closes. It's got a computer inside, but I like yours better." And it's not just him. And it's not just that hand. This is the Talon hand, another model. When Peregrine Hawthorne, whose father designed the Talon hand, got his version 2.0 hand, he discovered when he was sitting at a bus stop that he was accidentally crushing the soda can in his hand. And these designs are mixing and matching and recombining and reproducing. So the Talon and the Cyborg Beast begat the Talon Beast. And it's not just our academics who are coming up with these inventions. This one was done by Greg Dennison, whose son Luke needed a hand. Greg learned how to use a 3D printer and do design from another father who had learned how to do it for his son. And Greg recognized that if one thumb was good, two thumbs would be better. And if you look closely, you can see that Luke has got a really special hand. So he's now known around the world as Cool Hand Luke. Tully was asked, what color would you like? And he said, could mine glow in the dark? And that's a really good idea. Tully also, when asked how long an arm he wanted, he said, well, I want to put it on right on my arm here because that's what I'm used to. And so he's a double innovator. I had the experience of showing Derek this very prototype and explaining in my grown-up fashion what we were going to do. And he took this one and he took another one and he put them together and he said, could my arm be this long? And so Derek has an arm that's about 50% longer than his regular arm, and he can pick things up off the floor and he can pick things up off the highest shelf. And why not? What these things do is they turn these kids into superheroes and the star of the class after, you know, an alternative existence in which there's sort of the awkward kid with the funny hand who tries often as they get older not to do that. The psychological and morale benefits seem to be obvious, and indeed there are physical and, of course, dexterity benefits as well. And as a matter of fact, that design proliferation continues. And at a conference, this is where I need your help, at a conference in Baltimore, Maryland on September 28th, we're going to introduce Hand 2.0, which pulls together some of the best innovations, sorry about that, some of the best innovations of the last year and creates a somewhat standard platform for further innovation. And at this conference, we're going to unveil Hand 2.0. We're going to have workshops in which we train prosthetists as well as parents how to assemble and build these things. And we're going to discuss some of the policy and FDA regulatory implications that are going to come up in a workshop a mere 10 days later in Washington, D.C. Medical professionals, if you know people who want to see an amazing industry-creating, groundbreaking conference at Baltimore, please let them know about it because it's really an interesting kind of event. You're going to have our ragtag bench of amateurs working with the professionals, learning from them, and planning expeditions to foreign countries and refugee situations and so on. The thing has really taken off. And the other way it's taking off, besides our mainstreaming into the medical establishment, is we've done an end run around the medical establishment. We've created Hand-O-Matic software, which runs in a web browser and lets anyone go, let's say, to a public library with a 3D printer and enter a couple of key measurements of their hands, pick the particular model hand they want, and get the prints. And if a printer is there, actually do the printing. And while the printing happens, they can watch videos about how to assemble them. And this is happening and beginning to happen at maker fairs, public libraries, schools, and, as a matter of fact, science museums. At this point, I will invite Claire Gudermuth, who was an intern at the Tech right here in San Jose, to explain how she got into this story.
Internship at the Tech Museum at the beginning of June, and I had never seen a 3D printer. They kind of just threw me on them, and I was really impressed by the technology, but I really wanted to see them do something extraordinary. And when I heard about e-NABLE, I thought, this is by far the best use of 3D printing I have ever seen. I immediately printed out a hand and had it on display along with the printers for guests to come and see. We had a Saturday workshop for kids to come in and hack a notebook. And on their way out, this one little girl was talking to my manager. And she saw the 3D printed hand that I'd made on display. She said, I want one. And we said, we would absolutely love to make you a hand. We went through a bunch of prototyping processes because I had never done any 3D modeling of any kind, but really wanted to make something that was customized specifically to her features. And that was great with the e-NABLE community because I could just post a question online, and within a day, within hours, there would be somebody who would answer my question and help me out. And so we went through several iterations of the design, and I actually gave her her final hand today. Her name is Ebba Johansson, and her mom is Lisa, and they're actually here today. And I'd like to invite them to come on stage. So Ebba, what do you like about your new hand?
I think that the greatest part of getting this hand would be to use it for, as I get older, I'm going to have more and more trouble since I have been born with an extraordinary thing.
What do you want to use it for?
Riding bikes and other things, which is a hands-on things, like hands-on activities and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Like maybe when you get older, you can use it to drive a car.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the technology, Lisa?
It's really neat. We saw it at Maker Faire first. That's how I got into the whole hand thing and asked if Ebba wanted to have one. She had done great when she was younger without help, but I saw that she needed something more for some things, like cutting up her own meat.
Mm-hmm.
I think she would be happy to do that on her own.
So as a matter of fact, we have a new design in which there's an adjustable thumb. This isn't out yet. And one of our members in Rochester, Skip Meats, has been wearing it day in and day out, and he's now cutting meat with his knife. So this is just the beginning. You know, we like to say that this year Ebba got her hand. Ebba, show them what you can do. There you go, right? But Ebba, now I get to use one of my favorite lines. Ebba, with great hands comes great responsibility. All right? Soon, I think, Mom may not have the budget for it, but I think that next year Ebba gets not another hand, but she gets a printer, and she starts making her next step up, and she starts making hands and designing hands for other kids. And that basically is the vision of what we're doing. And I got to say, it's a little odd, but it seems to be working. So that's our story.